And now, from Washington, D.C., the star of Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, please. Well, thank you so much. And hi, I'm Bill Maher, and this is Politically Incorrect, the show that is very happy to be here in Washington, D.C., but hates the fact that there is so much snow here that Marion Barry was trying to get a hold of that mirror they used on the Hubble. Well, a little... trying to feel like we're really in Washington, you know. Well, today my guests are Representative Barney Frank, Lois Romano, Rich Scheidner, and Ann McLaughlin. And we're going to be talking about, first of all, the withdrawal of Bobby Inman and the fact that Clinton's cabinet is starting to look like the Temptations. You know, there's no original members. And we're also going to be talking about the final verdict in the Iran-Contra scandal. It seems, did you hear this? Lawrence Walsh, now he found Reagan was not guilty of trading arms for hostages, but he did uncover the fact that while in Reykjavik with Gorbachev, Reagan came perilously close to trading all of our nuclear weapons for a handful of shiny objects. Sorry, I'll be done in a minute. And we're also going to be talking about the California earthquake. You know, it had a profound effect on a lot of the celebrities out there. For one day, Mel Tillis did not stutter. Katharine Hepburn didn't twitch, and Sean Connery got a really shaken, not stirred martini. So there was, and most incredible, there were reports that Shannon Doherty had some sense knocked into her. So, and in our fourth segment, I'll be playing Somebody's Gotta Say It. So remember, all the material you'll see on this show has been satirized for your protection. You heard America causes cancer. Since Vietnam, we only fight the easy part. Everybody up to that. Politics, the show business, Clinton's just Reagan without the sand. All the women in the work.
Sexual marriage.
Like sex.
I have a dream.
Let me do that. Thank you. Thank you and welcome to the show. And we are on location here inside the Beltway in our nation's capital, so let's get right to it and meet our panel. Our first guest is the United States Representative from Boston, and we are honored to have the Honorable Barney Frank. We also have, to my right, her gossip column in the Washington Post is called Reliable Source, and it's the first thing everyone who's anyone reads in the morning in this town. Lois Romano. Good friend of mine, comedian and world-renowned canyon man Rich Scheidner is here. And the former Secretary of Labor in the Reagan administration and currently the president of the Federal City Council in Washington, D.C., Ann McLaughlin. So we have a star-studded panel, and as you could probably tell, we are in the round. And before I start, let me apologize. It's so rude to have my back to anybody, but I will have to. And tell me if Tonya Harding is up there. But we have a lot of issues we want to get right to. And the first one is Bobby Inman's withdrawal. Now, I think first we should probably say that the smart money is on the fact that his cry of media conspiracy was probably a smokescreen. We don't want to look like we're dumb down here in Washington. We know that. But let's pretend we're the dumb money for a minute and say, because it is an issue about people quitting in this town. Is it not? Has that not come up quite often in recent years? I mean, Warren Rudman and Tim Wirth from the Senate, Inman from the Pentagon, Ross Perot from the insane asylum. A lot of people are saying that this town is a viper's nest and it's too rough on people, and that's what I really want to ask. Are we weeding out the wimps with this process, or are we getting rid of legitimate, good talent? What do you think, Barney?
Oh, I think there's been too much negativism, although there haven't been a lot of people quitting. Warren Rudman had a good run. He was here for, 3 terms and then left. I don't think it drives too many people out. Most of the people who quit not all, but most quit because of a wide variety of reasons, including the fact that they probably couldn't get reelected. I mean, that's sort of in there in almost everybody.
Yeah, right.
In almost everybody who has left Congress, who's under the age of 70. But
right, kind of like in the movies when someone can't get a picture. They, well, I want to spend more time with my family.
That's right.
They always trot out their family.
No one ever asked, and no one ever asked the family if they could vote. They might be staying in Congress. that would be. But
I was good. But isn't that the biggest excuse here in Washington? I want to spend more time with my family. Yeah. A family who they probably did nothing but cheat on, use in campaigns, and ignore. And then the family's going, hey, go get a job.
People do try to spend time with the family, but. I do think there's been a kind of a bias towards negativism on the part of the press, which is a problem. It's a problem, I think, because it makes people think that the solutions to government problems are too easy. If the reason we haven't solved a problem of unemployment is a whole range of complicated factors, including the international economy, et cetera, that's one thing. If it's because the people who are in office are stupid and incompetent, people get a misleadingly easy idea about how easy it is to solve things. If it was both, it would be still easy to make some improvement. In fact, I think it's almost always that the problems are intractable. And I think that the danger is that the public gets to think that things are too easy.
Okay, well, we have to break away here. We haven't engaged anybody else yet, but it's been a lovely one.
Am I done?
No, it's just because we were short on time, but we're going to get back to
Maybe
this
they'll get
issue.
mad and quit.
Read
the show.
We'll be back in a minute. We'll pick up where we left off.
If you'd like to be in our audience for Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, call 212-512-8959.
Okay, welcome back. We had really only scratched the surface in that first segment about whether Washington is too much of a viper's nest.
I thought I had plumbed the depths.
For anyone to withstand Lois, you write the column here about all these things that go on. What do you think? Do you think we've gone too far?
Well, first I want to say that I don't think Bobby Ray Inman is a metaphor for anything,
right,
except a guy who spent a little too much time in covert operations. I mean, if we had let him talk at the press conference for like 2 more minutes, he would have come up with a conspiracy about how he was going to be blamed for Nancy Kerrigan's beating, and then moved on to the Arkansas State Troopers. I mean, he just... Right. So I'm not sure that he's a really good example. There are some good examples, but I blame the politicians for using the press to settle their scores in some of these cases. Lana Guinier is one. I mean, special interests wanted her dead, and they used the press relentlessly to promote her writings and things of that sort. Some of these issues, though, are real. Like,
well, which ones do you think are real? Maybe we should go around the panel and ask. I mean,
Zoe Baird.
Zoe Baird was a real one.
I think it was a real issue. She didn't pay her taxes, and she was going to be the top law enforcement.
Bobby Inman had the same problem, but suddenly months later we were excusing that because we're going to change.
Well, the more serious problem with her was that she knew that the people were here illegally. I mean, that was a different one.
Well,
but I have to.
Well, we're getting to find, slice the bologna thin.
Well, I think
speaking of slicing the bologna, what about Bob Packwood? What do you think? Is that Rich?
It's a dangerous time for people named Bob.
You think that's a phony one? You think that's a real one?
No, that's definitely a real one. I like the pressure cooker. I like the whole process. The same thing with Ross Perot when he was running. Just appoint me king. Let's get this election over with. And I was like, no, let the election, let it roll out. Let's see who survives. I have a real with Bobby Inman, I read this thing in the paper. I think it's a personal thing. That he said growing up that he used to do the football players' homework to avoid getting beatings when he was growing up in Texas. Years later, he has the same sort of behavior pattern to keep the Packer reporters off his back. He feeds them information, right? Yeah. So now he starts getting word that they're going to come after him. He's having flashbacks to when the football players beat him up when the season was over. So he snaps and he goes, "I'm not getting me again." You know,
right?
The good news, I think.
So he was in there.
The good news out of all of this, and it's been touched on, is the process did work.
Yeah.
And so part of the process is press scrutiny. Much of it stimulated with information by politicians.
But it may not work in every case. Do you think it worked in the case of Gary Hart? Some people say we lost a really good leader there because they probed his personal life and had nothing to do with what he was. What about Clarence Thomas? Now here's a guy who got the job, but if you've read anything about what he's like now, he is so bitter. Would you want to be judged by a guy who is that pissed off every day?
I don't think we
comes
know
into
that.
work with a scowl on his face and a pubic hair in his coke can and. I'm telling you, he is a very bitter man.
We don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know that.
We don't
You
know
don't know
that.
that.
We know that he's not speaking much on the court, but that might go to his skills rather than.
Yeah, he was.
But then there was
He never discussed Roe v. Wade as a judge. I mean, there are frat boys at Chico State who talk about Roe v. Wade between hits on a beer bong. I mean, that in itself. You forget the rest. Forget the sexual harassment.
See, the press no longer cover, in my view, excuse me, Lois, they're participants in the process, and that's the way the process has come about. And I think that's the difference from before.
I would take vigorous exception to Lois's, the devil made me do it. Oh, the press didn't do this. It's the politicians who manipulate them. I have looked closely. I see no strings coming out of her back here. She seems to me an autonomous, thinking, feeling human being who does what she wants to do.
But use Clarence Thomas. There's no way that Nina Totenberg had access to the information that she subsequently used, and that was given to her by the Hill.
Of course it was given, but the press also decides what they're going to run with and what they're not going to run with.
But
and the press has developed... but you decide what's news. And
that's
what's
their job.
News,
that is their job.
Yes, it is what's their job.
And sometimes we decide not to use stuff.
Right.
No, but it's their job. But what Lois was saying was that that's almost an automatic thing, that they're just the transmission belt. The fact is that they decide, increasingly they decide, that things that may look scandalous, things that may look personal, are better news than more complicated subjects. I think the press, in fact, debases the process to a great extent now by getting away from the issues and into the sex. That's fine. A lot of people want to do it. But they shouldn't pretend no one made them do it. They do it voluntarily.
Wait. The good news is there are lots of press. There are press who cover economics. There are press who cover business. There are press who do what Lois does. Them. That's not the press's fault. That's not the press's fault. That's the point.
Well, I disagree with Ann.
But you can't say that.
Ann, you're describing newspapers, but you're not describing TV to some extent.
Oh, there's a big choice on TV now. You can have a laugh like this, or you can get serious and watch McNeil Lehrer.
Or you can do
both.
But the problem is that people only have a certain amount of time they're going to watch. And to suggest that the press has no role in this and that they're just the neutral transmission belt is what Lois did. And I think that's silly. You said it's not the press, it's the bad politicians that make you do this.
I'm not saying
nobody makes you do anything.
We don't have a role, but where do we get these stories from?
And which ones do you decide to run and which ones do you decide not to run?
Well, and a lot of times we don't run them.
That's like the kid that says, hey, I don't make the guns, I just pulled the trigger. What are you yelling at me for?
Absolutely.
That's the same cop-out.
We make judgments, but I'm tired of the press getting beat up.
Of course you are, because you are the most hypersensitive people in the United States of America.
That's coming from a politician, right?
Let me just ask you.
Politicians aren't sensitive. I mean, that's
right.
Not as sensitive as the press.
Absolutely right. Tell me.
No, the press believes that it's their constitutional right to object to everybody else and criticize or raise an issue about a press, raise an issue about Sam Donaldson taking $30,000 from the insurance industry. You're beating them up unfairly. The press is much more sensitive than any other segment of our society.
Barney. Let me bring up the one part of this equation I think anybody's brought up. You talk about the press, you talk about the politicians. What about the people? Isn't there an inherent hypocrisy on their part that they find objectionable scandals about drugs and sex? I mean, what do the people in this country do? They take a lot of drugs, they have a lot of sex.
They understand.
They're drug-using cheaters. I mean, not in a bad way, but they cheat on their income tax. They do a million things that are bad. And why should they?
I think the public is, in fact, becoming less interested in this than the press thinks. I think, for instance, the Arkansas State Troopers, some of the press talked about that, and I don't think the average voter could care less what Bill Clinton was doing as reported by the Arkansas State Troopers. I think that story just fell flat because of public lack of interest.
Okay, but if the issue is, excuse me,
I have to say, excuse me, because we'll do it when we come back, but I have to go because we're bleeding into the next show. Okay, coming up next, we're going to try to. We're going to talk about earthquakes, so we'll try to talk about the Whitewater scandal. Who knew Arkansas had banks?
Accommodations provided by the JW Marriott Hotel. Outstanding service with a presidential address. The JW Marriott Hotel, 1331 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay, welcome back. And we have a lot more to say about scandals, but we're going to be here in Washington for a week, so we're going to do it another show because we wanted to get to the fact that there was earthquakes, and we thought there was an issue there. I am against them. But I was out there for the earthquake, and I live out there as you do, Rich. And you see that? Can you see that cut there? Seriously,
yes,
you see?
yes.
Do you verify I have a cut there? That is earthquake, well, related. I was so tense about it. I was drinking heavily and passed out. Hit my head on the coffee table, but I mean it was.
And you were in Washington.
No, a shelf came down and hit me right on the noggin there, and so we are not dancing on anybody's grave here with earthquakes. But I think there really is an issue about disasters in this country: the earthquakes, the floods in the Midwest, Hurricane Andrew, people who build houses on stilts. 25% of the people in California have earthquake insurance. Now, to me, this is like if you're in Alaska and you don't have mittens, and then you get frostbite and you ask the government to pay for it. I mean, if you are in an area like that, or the people who built too close to the river in the Midwest, don't you think it's a microcosm of the situation in this country where people want the entitlements, but they don't want to pay for them? Rich Scheidner.
No, I agree with you totally. I am fully insured. I'm insured against UFO landings. I'm insured against bad karmic damage from a previous owner of the house. I'm totally insured. But, my house was a little bit damaged, slightly damaged, and stuff was, my wife likes to put things up on the shelves, so now all that became flying projectiles,
Right.
Let's put some ninja stars up on those shelves next time. But I said, I called up the insurance agent, of course, and say, how am I, she goes, well, there's a 10% deductible on the value of the house, which on a $350,000 house means $35,000 is your threshold before you collect any money.
Really?
So I go, whoa. I go, no wonder people aren't buying into it because they figure on a slight thing. She goes, yes, but if you're totally wiped out, if your house is totally demolished, you'll get all the money. I go, you'll be dead, but our descendants will pick up the check.
But Barney, now how would you vote in that when something like that comes up? Do you think there's...
Well, we're in the process of trying to change it with regard to flood insurance, and we are trying to say that at the very least, if you rebuild in a place where it's going to get flooded again, we're not going to insure you, and there will be some tightening there. I think the rule ought to be that you have to be better off if you're insured than if you're not. That doesn't mean you get zero if you weren't insured, but it's a mistake to give people the same protection without insurance as with insurance because we ought to be promoting insurance. So I don't think you do come out whole, and we may want to even increase that differential.
All right. Well, when we come back, we just got the verdict from the Lorena Bobbitt trial. It is, what time is it here in Washington? It's 5:25. It came in about 20 minutes ago. So we're going to tell you what that is, and we're going to talk about it.
Got a problem with any of this? Well, write to us at Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. HBO Downtown Productions, 120 East 23rd Street, New York, New York, 10010.
All right, we are back, and as promised, we have the verdict in the Lorena Bobbitt trial. He was innocent. She has been declared innocent by virtue of insanity. And so we have offsetting penalties. And that is the verdict. Apparently the jury decided to cut her some slack. Well, it's over. I had to get in one last one, and it sounds like the crowd. Now, you sound like you're in favor of that she's...
This looks like kind of gender-wise. Listen to it.
No, not necessarily, but let's start with Ann. What do you think?
Well, I think it sounds like an absolutely fair verdict from my point of view. It's clear that the audience is gender divided, and I suppose the country might be as well, and that in itself, I think, will be helpful. In this sense, what this has done is show two things. If Lorena had cut off his ear, I'm sure that there would never have been the attention on this.
You think?
I'm sure. Funny enough.
You are an astute.
Funny enough. Now, having said that, having said that,
right. How much fun have you had with your ear?
Speaking of, you don't knock it unless you've tried it. You don't know.
That's what I call oral sex.
Right. Now listen. On a serious note, though, the reason that it is a good verdict and the division may be helpful is that it will highlight again the abuse that women take that appears to be macho for men to administer. And if in this audience that kind of attitude is prevalent, then that's exactly what we have to work on as a society.
Okay, just quickly, but okay. Now, if we could just get, without making a speech, a very quick reaction from the rest of the panel about that. Barney, what do you think? Good or bad verdict?
Well, I think that since I didn't follow the trial very closely, it would be outrageous for me to pronounce on the verdict about a specific set of facts. I was somewhat appalled.
She cut off her penis, Barney. You must have heard something about it.
I did. And what?
You're a very busy man, Barney.
Yeah, Barney. Well,
the notion...
You have a schedule.
I got a problem with people who don't know the difference between a trial and a football game, which is root for your side. Yeah. Trials are about specific sets of facts, and civil liberties mean something. When Newsweek, get back to my favorite subject, the irresponsibility of the press, when Newsweek did a poll on whether she was innocent or guilty, I thought that was just outrageous. And I have to reserve my right not to talk about the specifics of a trial, which I didn't.
All right, the jury system. The jury system appears to have worked.
Okay, so you didn't want to talk about it. Let him shut up. Okay. Lois, what?
Well, from everything I've read about John Bobbitt, if she hadn't done it, I would have.
I have to say the same thing. I mean, I absolutely. People are surprised to think I'm a macho pig sometimes, but the truth is, I mean, if you read about this guy obviously was a abusing kind of guy, and I have selfish reasons. I mean, I have humanitarian reasons why I think, but also selfish for every man. It makes it tougher for every man to talk with any woman. Every woman has guys like that in their life, and then the rest of us nice guys come along and they're suspicious of us. It makes it a lot harder for us out there, and that's only part of it. Rich? Canyon Man, how do you feel about it?
No, I mean, from what I've read, I agree with what Barney was saying. I was there at the trial. I was only caught the reports, only caught the jokes. But, I think it's a no harm, no foul kind of situation. The fact that it was reattached and now apparently working again, everybody's like, just let them separate and go their separate ways. I got a feeling it's going to make it tough for either one of them to date again, but that's just the personal side. I mean, I heard Lorena's going to Venezuela, and I'm sure that they pick up the news down there. But I don't know whether it's going to make... I don't know, because I just feel like if these people... There's somewhere in there's a truth from either side. I don't know. But I just felt like just let them go their separate ways. He didn't do time. She's not doing time. Go. Just go. But I don't want to hear anymore.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in. See you on the next Politically Incorrect. I want to thank my guests, Barney Frank, Lois Romano, Rich Scheidner, and Ann McLaughlin.